We just learned, and this just dropped. I put a link in there, if you could put it up there. John Rustad has just resigned. We've been waiting for that. We were going to talk about that later, but we're watching this as it goes. If we could just put in this link. He has resigned as leader of the BC Conservative Party. Are you able to get that link in there? We're going to play this clip here.
All good? Pretty good?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, thanks for coming together on short notice. Obviously, it's been a very interesting session, a very interesting end of the session. So I'm just going to start off with the obvious here this morning, that I am announcing that I am stepping down as the leader of the Conservative Party of British Columbia. I will be remaining as an MLA and carrying out the work that needs to be done with regards to representing my riding of the Chaco Lakes.
There you go. That was well expected. The funding had been cut off. The Conservative Party had asked for it. But yesterday there was so much pressure, and he was like, "You can play that song. Hell no, I won't go." And he stuck around to the end. I had Gavin Dew scheduled yesterday for an interview regarding, like the BC small businesses, and they were going through a bunch of stuff. So that was, hopefully we get him today to see what's going on. He is one of the people that the polls highlighted as if, potential leader, but I'm sure there's a lot more names that are going to be coming up on that. But Ian noticed first that John Rustad actually changed his Twitter profile and took off leader before he even went out and did the press conference. So he managed to fix his Twitter profile first and took off leader.
How strange is that we live in that world? It's almost like on Facebook back where you can have the relationship status, and it would be like, is in a relationship with Cindy or something, and then that would disappear, and it'd be like, oh no, is the relationship over? I just can't believe that it's now like high politics and dramas. It's like, this is like the modern version of a coup or something like that, isn't it? Or like Julius Caesar being shanked in the Senate, but it happens on Twitter profiles.
So again,
but you can see. I would just note, based on that video that you just showed, that you can see how gutted he is, can't you? And you can see how reluctant that was. Yeah. I mean, he's fought that like to almost an unbecoming extent. It was almost kind of like being drunk at the dinner party, wasn't it? It's like Elizabeth May delivering a speech, being dragged off the stage. It's like, come on, mate. Like, hey, no, like your caucus doesn't want you anymore. It's gone. It's finished. It's not good for you. Like, but yeah, he didn't want to do it.
At least he didn't weep like Justin Trudeau. I guess that's a plus. And but the writing was on the wall. I mean, there's a couple of mistakes that he made, and a couple of mistakes if he looks back. And one was when Kevin Falcon resigned and handed him the ball at the 1 yard line, and he threw it down on the ground. Said, "I don't need that." I think that is going to be the moment that he looks back and says that was the biggest mistake ever. Instead of picking the team, he would have been in government right now. The NDP wouldn't be there, and he threw that down. And then left those BC United candidates in the wind for 2 weeks before ever even responding to them. And then a lot of them ran as independents, and it cost him seats that cost him the government. And then another one, I think the other biggest misstep that he made, well, there's a few, but Eleanor Sturco, booting Eleanor Sturco, one of the strongest voices out of the BC Conservative caucus there. I mean, that had to be one of the worst things he did, which rattled a lot of other MLAs, and then shaming Amelia Boltby there with mental health. That was like, oh my God, there was so many missteps, and he just wasn't ready, I don't think. And but kudos to him for bringing a Conservative Party that basically got rid of the BC United Party and brought a Conservative Party out of nothing into like a real contender, and then just some missteps along the way, which really
also. He completely broke the rules. He broke the rules of British Columbia politics, and he said things and did things that the BC United Gandalf, wise wizards of BC United and the BC Liberals, always said, no, you can't do that. This is British Columbia. You can't speak like that. You can't make arguments that you would make in somewhere like Ontario or Manitoba or something like that from a Conservative perspective. You can't do it because this is a really left-wing province. You'll get eaten alive. And he just did it anyway, and very, very nearly won the election. So I think he proved that a lot of things were possible. And definitely that victory from nothing, from nowhere, with no like resources, just him, and I'm partly motivated by revenge, like a kind of Shakespearean revenge tragedy where he just wanted to get Falcon back, and he did it. Like, I mean, he will go down as a major figure in BC politics. I would suspect, even as you pointed out, for so many reasons, he was not capable of being the leader of the opposition. He couldn't do it. He just didn't have. I don't think he had what was necessary in himself, and he also didn't have the team around him. But talking about cutting through and like actually getting your face out there into the public, getting your ideas out there, that was his biggest failure. He just wasn't doing that. It wasn't happening. And Eleanor Sturko, the one that he kicked out of the party, was doing it. That was quite an awkward situation, wasn't it? And then she got turfed.
She's likely a front runner for leader of the party, and this has got to be David Eby's worst day, I would say, because he's counting on this, because the NDP stovetop is boiling over everywhere. I mean, it's just a mess. It's an absolute mess. And the only thing they had going for them is that the Conservatives were a bigger mess. We interviewed Jonathan Kay a while back, and he said, like, as bad as Eby is living in La La Land, the Conservatives are in complete chaos. And this likely is the moment that the Conservatives are waiting for to regroup. And Jonathan Kay says there's got to be a Stephen or Stephanie Harper out there to take this party to where it needs to go, and basically maybe even send the NDP into hinterland where they need to go and regroup as well, because they've become a far left extremist party as well.
Somebody in the on YouTube in the comments has said Eleanor Sturko is a full-on liberal with a capital L, big L. I've heard that a lot of times. I've heard that criticism of her, but I don't know. I mean, something that is true. I know I was praising Rustad for breaking all the rules and still winning, but something that's true, if you want to be in opposition and then win an election and govern sensibly from the right, you do have to bring in people like Eleanor Sturko and Gavin Dew and Renee Merrifield. Renee Merrifield is another really good example, who you speak to her every week, so you can talk to her about this, I guess. But I've observed her politics evolve, she might say, or change since the Rustad phenomenon. I remember interviewing her about John Rustad when he first came on the scene, and she was very disapproving of his policies and his attitude and that kind of thing. But now, if you listen to Renee Merrifield now, you two talk, she often enough says quite similar things. Like, she's kind of in agreement, and so's Gavin Dew, and so's Eleanor Sturko. It's kind of like Rustad has moved. The Rustad phenomenon has moved the dial a bit. I think it's moved the Overton window. So I think people like Eleanor Sturko, you might be surprised actually what she would the sort of policies that she would support as leader. I think things have changed. She's not going to be like Kevin Folgan. It's not going to be, and even Kevin Folgan was kind of a bit more. He was pushing it a bit, if you remember in your interviews with Kevin Folgan. Yeah. He changed as Rustad emerged. Like, that's what happens in politics. It's all about sort of trying to find a sensible position for yourself to win an election. And in BC, it's from the right anyway. It's shifted. It's changed. So Eleanor Sturko, I don't think she would be a liberal, really. I think she would change.
Yeah, I believe that Renee Merrifield has really become comfortable with herself, and she speaks more like naturally now as opposed to when she was in government. I think she's really coming to her own, and I think she would be a great asset back in the legislature if she ever chose to go back there, because I think she is really, it takes well. I mean, that was her first term in there, so I think she would do well.
And just think how much it's changed, how much social attitudes and political attitudes have changed since she first stepped foot in there. She's evolved. And that's the important thing to bear in mind. Just because she might have said things that sounded liberal, and Eleanor Sturko that sounded liberal in the past, we're all changing all the time. We're always responding, aren't we, to events.
I think
I wouldn't condemn someone forever because they used to be liberal or something.
I think BC is a province where if you can find the center, that's where you need to be to win this province, because David Eby is a far left extremist, and then they accused John Rustad of being a far right extremist, which they used that to kind of win votes, and they used they tried to stick the label of Trump on him, and he wasn't able to shake it off because, like he did bring in some people into his party that weren't vetted enough, and that caused some fractures as well. And hopefully whoever the voice is that can come in there can be that Stephanie or Stephen Harper and bring some healing back to British Columbia.
But you said, just to add to that, you say AB's a left-wing extremist, but I'm not. I don't know. I'd say he's definitely left-wing. He's definitely a progressive. And you can argue about how far into progressivism he is. It seems that he is pretty deep into it. But remember, before the election, we're talking about how Renee Merrifield and other people changed. Look at how EB changed. He changed his tune on almost every major policy, almost everything. Because he was so scared of John Rustad. He went way to the right. And just yesterday, by his standards, I'm not saying he was on the right, but he moved right. And yesterday he was asked a question about the Green Party, and he was talking about the Green Party being like extremists, and he listed off all the things that they don't support. And it was like, mostly it was things that he also didn't support like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
It just really highlights how fluid this all is. It changes so rapidly.
I think the key is that they're starting to realize that the province of BC is center, and that they have to move to the center. Because right now, Eby's and his team have got to be like a little bit worried right now, because they were calling an election. They could have won majority, probably, like if they would have called an election with Rustad still at the helm. But now, depending on who they put in as a leader, Eby's got to be worried about what's happening now.
Absolutely, especially as things just get worse and worse. Not just forestry, but just affordability in general, housing, these land claims. It's becoming like impossible to stay in power, I think, in BC. If there's a halfway decent opposition, it has to be inevitable that he's going to get kicked out.
I mean, like I said, the stovetop is boiling over, and that's finance, economics, business, land claims, economy. Like it's a mess everywhere you look. Healthcare. Look at the healthcare. We talk about it so many times.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.